This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Hover. Visit hover.com and use the promo code REMO, R-E-M-O, for 10% off a new domain name registration. It's a video game podcast.
And my name's Chris.
Zach's here.
Idle Thumbs. Games, video 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 games, video. Video games.
Why? Why am I back? I have nothing to say and I'm really tired. All right.
It's February 5th, 2014.
This is Idle Thumbs 144. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
I'm Nick Breckon.
And we're joined today by our friend and co-creator of the Kingdom of Loathing, Zack Johnson.
Hey, guys. Thanks for
Zach.
having me.
Hey.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Fun to have you here. So we got a bunch of new listeners in the last week, it seems, and we figured we would just reintroduce ourselves because of that to folks who maybe haven't heard us before. So we are basically just a bunch of friends who work in San Francisco in the video games industry, and we record this weekly podcast. I'm
Nick Breckon.
That's true, you are. So I'm Chris. Until recently, I worked for Double Fine Productions, and I now work at Campo Santo, which is a small video game studio in San Francisco that was co-founded by Jake. And Sean, who's not here this week.
Yeah, Sean's the other host of the show who's not here. I'm Jake. I work at Campo Santo in SF, and I used to work at Telltale Games, where I worked on The Walking Dead. And this is just a completely just perfect, wonderful chain of introductions.
Yes.
Because Nick...
Yeah. I'm Nick, and I work at Telltale. I used to work with Jake and Sean. I'm a writer there.
And I'm Zach. I make video games, and I'm not really on this podcast.
Yeah.
But you are today.
Today
and
I
that's
am.
what counts.
We have important things to talk about tonight.
The we do not.
No, okay.
That's probably true.
I feel like... I don't know how much there is to say about this, but I feel like we should just get right into it, which is Disneyland.
Oh, yeah. Nick went to Disneyland this week.
I did. I went to Disneyland.
Disneyland is like a video game.
It's not... Well, yeah. A lot of people actually compare it to a video game.
Yeah, Disneyland is a lot like a video game.
Yeah. It's kind of like...
Wait, I want to hear what Zach has to say about it.
Well, no, I mean, I feel like Disneyland is interesting in the way that video games are interesting because it's all about the sort of design of the user's experience.
Yeah.
Sure.
When the user is allowed to make a lot of choices about things. And
Yeah.
it's just sort of... A lot of it is just trickery, but a lot of it is also just like, let's make sure that there's always something cool to look at, no matter what direction you're looking in. And it's like, it's a thing that I really... like. I don't know that I necessarily feel like you can learn a lot by going there, but it is at least... It's like a considered experience, and you can like trust in that, right? And they actually like they keep it clean and stuff. Like they care about
like how video
like
games keep it clean.
They keep it clean.
Video games, they keep it clean. You don't.
It's like most multiplayer video game experiences. Clean, wholesome, lovely. So we talking about
like I was just gonna say like having worked at Bethesda, a lot of those guys will point to the castle at Disneyland as an example of just very simple point of reference for open world design. There's just a lot of comparisons that are made all the time. Anyway, I played fucking Buzz Lightyear though. That's what we got to talk about.
Yeah, we're here today.
Yeah.
We're doing this podcast today because we heard that Nick rode the Buzz Lightyear ride in Tomorrowland. So, this ride, just to clarify for people who don't know, is like 12 years old. Yeah. So this is not actually like a scoop.
Yeah. On the outside, it actually says based on the events of Toy Story 2.
Yeah.
Which is just like, really up to date. But
what's the ride called?
Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blaster.
Oh, it's an Astro Blaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, so I went into Astro Blasters attempting to win.
You can't win Astro Blasters.
There used to be. So I tried to game the system. I looked up the best cheats and hints.
What?
You got the Party Games Astro Blaster guy?
Fucking, like, min-max Astro Blaster?
Pretty much. I mean, what else are you gonna do? I mean, what, you don't go in like just
I don't know,
having a good time? Like,
have
no,
fun with your family.
Okay, so
what?
Make sure the kids are having a good time.
It's not a baby game. If the targets are hard to hit, they're like way up at the top of the ceiling.
It's not a baby
I think
game.
it actually is.
Yeah.
Of all the
What's the
times we've
height
used-
requirement on this?
It's not actually.
game.
You can aim down the sights.
I think of
It has
all.
iron sights.
It does have iron sights, and they work.
This might actually, in fact, of all the games we've euphemistically referred to as baby games, this might in fact be the only one that is, in reality, a baby game.
It's not though. You have to be higher than a baby to. You have to. The height requirement is
It's at
above
least
baby.
it's at least an older, like upper toddler game.
Yeah.
It's for kids. It's for kids who can walk.
It's a legitimately difficult game.
It is actually very hard.
It's very difficult. But
Yeah,
the
like if you're
the
a
thing that I
baby.
learned though, so I played it twice. The thing that I
do you want
learned
to
is that
explain?
it's
Do you want to explain?
well, yeah.
what
So it's a laser game.
Oh, okay.
It's based on laser, like laser tag technology.
right.
It's
You sit inside cars that are like any other, like a haunted house ride or something, where it's just slowly
like
going on
any
a
other
track.
Yeah,
But you can control the rotation.
You
of
can
the
control
car.
the rotation of the car.
Yes.
You're given a laser
Very
gun,
important.
and there are targets all over the place.
Yeah,
and
there are
it's,
targets.
it's 2 to a car.
Right, 2 to a
Also.
car. You're basically competing against the person next to you. Although there's also a scoring system at the end that's sort of more along the lines of
It just says
personal best. Like you're a level 5 guy if you score between 100,000 and 200,000 points.
And it
or
shows the
whatever.
best
So
score of the day, I think.
I didn't notice that,
Man,
but maybe
it did last time I was there.
Well,
Those ranges, given where everybody in my party got, like the first time we went through,
Yeah.
those ranges indicate that there is obviously
there's a huge
there is a
disparity.
lot of
Disparity, yeah.
like, there's a lot of skillful play that you can
That's
do
where you
in there.
separate the Nick Breckons
Yeah.
from the babies.
Yeah.
And
it's true. I mean, so I went in just really attempting to crush my girlfriend, and the thing is, so here's the thing. I don't think it's calibrated properly. I was really disturbed.
amazing. This is already. I went in. Okay, I went in with the intention of crushing my girlfriend. And look, here's the thing. I don't think it was calibrated Fuck you already.
Hold on. On top of that, let me tell you something.
Okay,
the
that's
first
fine.
picture.
The fact that you indicated what your intention was, and you've already introduced like 3 disclaimers.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Continue.
I was going to beat my girlfriend at this Disneyland shooting gallery. Anyway, the gun wasn't calibrated.
Oh, man.
Anyway, look at this. You want to feel this muscle?
I had to resort to some really sleazy tactics because you have
you punch her?
No, well, so there's the there's a joystick in the middle of between the two lasers. You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah,
there's a
I've done this
joystick. You
around
can
like 300
control the
times.
movement of the car, right?
Yeah.
She didn't know that existed, or at least
my
I don't think she was. She was like.
Nick Breckon.
I don't think she wasn't planning on using it. Let's put it that way. So I would juke the thing anytime that she tried to line up a shot. Basically, the second half of my experience was just intentionally trolling her play to the point where I ended up beating her.
She presumably doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah, she does. So the thing that was disappointing though, we get done. It takes a picture of you near the end. And then it superimposes your scores next to your faces. They flipped the scores, so now
They didn't flip the scores. You just grabbed her gun and used that accidentally.
yeah, it's garbage.
Wait, so I don't.
Anyway,
what is the
but
takeaway of this? Like, what,
I don't know. I'm just saying I tried
you
to
were
win
just
and I
the
didn't.
biggest ass possible. Then, even after all that, you're like, did they flip the scores?
So let's just.
But I do want to back up and say that I did try. So I tried to learn. I tried to go online and learn. What the strategies are. Basically, very simple strategy.
For framing here, I'm guessing she didn't.
No, she didn't. She didn't know I was doing it either.
So that's good context for this.
But what I wanted to say is that it was interesting because when they originally designed the game, it's not actually interesting, but when they originally designed the game, they had hidden Easter egg point scores. So like there's a zone like the first screen basically. If this was a game, you come into the first shooting gallery, and like if you knew to like turn around and shoot the Z up in the top corner, you could get like 100,000 points per hit. Now everybody's gamed it. Like they all know that exists, and so they've changed all of that stuff so that it's basically like the opposite of that. Like you get 50 points. It's completely backwards. You don't read the online hints and tips. Anyone going to Disneyland this season,
Astro Blasters.
it will lead you astray and lead to your embarrassment.
Need this tip.
So here's what I think we should talk about. We opened this episode by saying we've got a lot of new listeners. We are professional game developers who work in the San Francisco Bay Area game development community. Anyway, let's talk about how Nick tried to beat his girlfriend in a Disneyland ride.
Yeah.
So go listen to a different episode if you want to hear us talk about something
about anything
about anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I don't know. What did you guys play this week? Game, set, match. I don't know what it's like. Yeah. Oh, it's it was fun though. Disneyland's fun. So
I love Disneyland. I've been there for several years.
Yeah.
Disneyland is great because it another way in which it is like a video game is that it's good. I have a thesis statement. If you think about a Wild West video game, it would have a certain number of things in it that weren't necessarily like what a town in the West would look like, but they are what a Wild West town in Disneyland would look like, right? It represents the same sort of level of abstraction and sort of like iconography of say colonialism or whatever like genre they're trying to give you your entertainment in.
It's true. It takes the tropes and it kind of...
Well, it's just a big set. It's like a big movie set.
I know. It takes all the things that like your brain hones in on about those like settings or eras or whatever.
But it's like a cartoon. It's like walking around on a cartoon of a movie.
It's like walking around in the 1960s depiction of real life.
Or the Las Vegas version of...
Yeah, exactly. The 2/3 of the way down the like understanding comic spectrum of like a building or a tree or whatever that it's...
What I found really strange this time was like walking through Tomorrowland. I did feel literally like I was in a theme park game. I think I must have played Roller Coaster Tycoon recently or something where like this like the music, the generic like looping sci-fi music next to like sort of the very generic sci-fi
You're like, oh, there's a 3D emitter over there.
Yeah, it was really strange. I was like positional sound, everything just felt very much somebody had just placed that building in the world and suddenly like it was just looping the theme. I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird thing. Yeah. It's cool though. I like Disneyland. So
I used to go there like 3 times a year.
I remember that.
Yeah. I stopped doing that recently.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I went there for Thanksgiving and they
like this past Thanksgiving?
Yeah, like 3 months ago, whatever. They I didn't realize this, but they redo a lot of the stuff for Christmas, like the Haunted Mansion. The Haunted Mansion is all like
Nightmare Before Christmas
stuff.
It's not as good.
It's kind of a bummer.
It's the worst.
Because I go there basically as often as I want to, which is probably like once a year. It didn't bother me so much that I got there and it was all weird Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. But if that had been like my one trip this decade to Disneyland, I feel like I would have been kind of annoyed that the Haunted Mansion wasn't what it used to be.
We're going to get really out in the weeds here on this episode of Idle Thumbs, apparently.
There we go.
But I really like the Haunted Mansion overlay.
Oh, really?
Before Christmas thing.
Oh, so do I. So do I, absolutely.
I like it, again, for the same reason, probably because I go there too fucking often.
Yeah. But I don't think it is. I don't think it's like better than the original, but it was interesting to see like a different take on it with sort of more modern tech applied to it. Like, if there is a book...
Wait, Jake, you're giving the most skeptical look, and I can't figure out why.
It's because this is a weird episode.
Yeah. There's a book called It's Kind of a Cute Story by this guy, Raleigh Crump, which I have not read, but I'm going to talk about it on this podcast. I have listened to a couple of CDs that were like outtakes from the recordings, the interviews that they did with this guy. And it's just like, it seems like it was a super fascinating place to work for the smart guys that they hired in the 50s and 60s to put all this stuff together. Like just this guy telling stories from when they were building the Haunted Mansion. And it's neat, like, knowing a little bit about that stuff and then seeing like, okay, well, this is what they've done with the Nightmare Before Christmas stuff with like just better, more modern technology overlaid on it. But so much of what's impressive about that is just like, there is a giant sheet of glass that is, whatever, so big that it's in the Guinness Book of World Records as the biggest window or whatever. That's why you can see the ghosts in this dining room. And that's still exactly the same, even with the overlay, like, because why... Why mess with something that's like cool in a way that you wouldn't imagine?
I like those weird little things. I remember one of the more recent times, I guess I went to Disneyland. I walked through a completely like non-major thing, which is I guess just like a wing of the big castle thing. And there was like, I can't even remember.
Was that all the little dioramas of Sleeping Beauty?
All the little Sleeping Beauty like book pages. And they're like, it's not like a ride. It's just like you kind of walk through and there's this little like open tomes with these kind of 3D dioramas, but they all have just like little cool flame effects and things that are all like created in the world rather than just on a computer screen. And it's just like, it was just a clever, cool little thing. And I'm like, man, someone just thought of this and was like, how do we do this? How do we like make this interesting, like actual artifacts in the world and like this little display? And they just made it and did it. And I'm like, it's cool that there's a place for that. Like, it's cool that there's a location that just houses
Yep.
weird, odd creations like that.
Just like a bunch of money and effort
Yeah.
put to just making cool things to like make kids happy.
Well, it's like the thing that I like about Disneyland, I think, as an adult, and the thing that that always makes me go there repeatedly, is that it is just the most heightened, insane, like basically theater design, like set and production design, like real world constraints, actual physics, lighting, and like crazy weird forced perspective. But you just wander around inside of it, which weirdly just made me want to talk about Sleep No More. But I don't know if we've ever talked about that on this podcast. Have you been? Has anyone else been to that?
I have not.
No.
Shit. Okay. I don't know if I have enough to say about Sleep No More. It has nothing to do with Disneyland, other than it's a living theatrical experience.
I think every time I've heard about it, I thought it was a video game.
No, Sleep No More. Okay, so I guess I will talk about Sleep No More for a minute. There's so many
Maybe
people.
You're thinking of Sleep is Death?
No.
There are a lot of people who are so much more into Sleep No More, including like Steve Gaynor, I think has been multiple times. It's a. I don't actually want to give too much away of what actually exists inside of it, but it's a like living theater experience inside of New York, where they just have an entire building that exists for the purpose of you going inside of it and just walking around and doing whatever the fuck you want. Like, I think Gone Home feels very much like a game made by people who went to Sleep No More a lot of times, thought it was good. Like, there's actors inside of Sleep No More walking around living out a story that you can sort of follow along and engage with and disengage with, but also you can just wander into rooms and just open up drawers, and there's just reams of paper just with in-world fiction written inside of it. So you can just find all this weird stuff. Some of it's ambient details. Some of it turns out to be relevant to the sort of weird kind of like impressionistic show that's going on. And also, it's it's vaguely creepy. There's like probably 100 other patrons inside, but all of them are wearing like eyes wide shut sort of plague doctor mask things. So anyone who is not a performer has just a complete white face, crazy creepy mask on. And then actors are wandering around inside of it, and I think you can just go inside and stay as long as you want. It feels like a weird combination of like David Lynch and BioShock, basically. And I think the entire inside is a vague like interpretation of the story of Macbeth.
When I was at Irrational, people talked about Sleep No More all the time. Like, it's not like the BioShock link has been. Like, that connection has been observed by a lot of people. Obviously,
it's also
BioShock predates this thing, I think. But like, people at Irrational got really into like taking trips to New York to go. It's
set in a very similar era. Like, it also has a little bit of a Coen Brothers feeling, I guess, just because it's in a very sort of cinematic feeling old hotel. But then like it's got old jazz music playing and people just doing really weird, depraved stuff. So it feels like BioShock.
Is it expensive to?
I don't remember the cost of a ticket. I think compared to like going to see a Broadway musical or something, it's probably comparable.
But that's a pretty expensive.
I think
experience as far as like
it's probably actually less than something like that.
Oh, really? I thought it was like $60 to $100 or something.
Tickets to musicals are not cheap though.
Yeah,
I feel like the problem with experiences like that in general is it's so hard. Like, I don't know if it's that the people who want to do stuff like that don't necessarily have the business acumen to figure out how to do it profitably, but it's like, you can do like you can do a crappy haunted house if you charge a bunch of people a little bit of money to go through it. But like to do something like that as an installation, sort of institutionally, like it seems like, we did this because we got a grant because it's educational, and then the money ran out, and so we can't.
They've been doing it for years, and it seems like it sell
out basically all the time,
every night, or at least on weekends. And they've been doing it for a while. They also, I think they did a similar thing in a different city. Also,
they did it in Boston for a bit.
The thing that they've been doing at the Sleep No More, the one that's running right now in New York, because I subscribed to their mailing list. It was a crazy experience. If you're ever in New York, go to Sleep No More. Like, fucking do it. It's worth doing. But when you first go in, I guess that's not when you first go in. Sorry, this is needless noodling. But they have a liquor license and they have a complete bar with like jazz band, and it kind of nebulously exists inside of the fictional universe and also doesn't. And I think they also have events there. Like, they had New Year's Eve there, and the photos from that just look like Eyes Wide Shut, but with no boobs. But just like crazy. Like, it just looks like BioShock. It's fucking terrifying to see the Like I think that, but they do that sort of stuff where they have dinner parties, they do all sorts of stuff. I think they've successfully figured out how to make a fair amount of money out of their room that they fill with people.
We went to a talk by the guys that did the Jejune Institute stuff here in San Francisco, and they're working on some new thing. But
cool.
And it was
this was a really quick explanation. This was a real world, like set throughout the city of San Francisco, like basically full day event where you'd go to this weird office building in the financial district for like supposed orientation into this weird kind of new age pseudo cult thing, and it would lead you on basically what is essentially like a scavenger hunt or like a treasure hunt through the actual city to like find these items and piece together this like mystery that happened, and it was a really fun thing.
But I think even to find out about it, they had just put up flyers that were sort of like a puzzle that resolved to like a certain payphone that you had to go to talk to.
It wasn't quite that ridiculous. Like there were I remember because we did it, but there were like flyers on like lampposts and stuff throughout the city, and they'd be like, "Come visit the Jejune Institute at this address in San Francisco for your orientation." And it was like very vague, and we're like, we should just do this.
Yeah. But it didn't cost anything. The whole reason that it was able to exist, and the whole reason that their next project is able to exist, it finally came out. Like they were being cagey about the whole thing, and the talk.
It's got to be a grant, right?
Well, no, it's just one rich guy who is into this stuff and is just spending all his money on it. Like the guy that's in charge of it is just like, yep, we just had an angel investor, and it was me. And
crazy.
I don't know, maybe this was a super secret. Anybody was allowed to go to this talk. It was weird. They like set up all these candles, and everybody was wearing robes and stuff. Like the presentation that they gave about it was. But it like I remember reading about Richard Garriott, just to bring this back around to video games, because I know how much you guys like Richard Garriott.
Bring it back to normal video game talk. Like this man with his crazy castle with like 4 wrecked ships inside of it, or whatever the fuck. He's in space now.
Sure. He
tried to sell that house.
Did it not sell?
He basically spent all of his money going into space.
Yep.
And then
who would buy that house? That house looks like
I think he had trouble selling it.
Yeah.
You know, it looked really...
It has like a neon blue library.
But it looked disappointingly like a normal-ass house from the outside, which is, I think, why nobody would... Like, none of the people who would be interested in the inside of that house were interested in the outside. I don't know.
Definitely the other way around as well.
I saw John Romero at Disneyland. That was weird.
Video games.
What? You saw Romero?
Yeah, he was just there in line. It was really weird with Brenda.
Say hi?
Did you take a shoes?
Brenda Brathwaite?
Yeah, they were just sort of like skipping past, and then they stopped, and they looked really happy. I was like, "Oh, there's John Romero."
Did you say hi?
No.
Did you start listing off names
I don't want to make it
maps
weird.
that he made?
Yeah. I don't. Do you want him to? Whatever. Like, no, I didn't want to. Yeah. Anyway, but you were saying
but Garriott just used to. Garriott used to.
I thought about doing that. Anyway,
God, if you just ripped up on your jacket and had a Daikatana t-shirt on right then.
Make me your bitch, John.
Yeah.
You promised all those years ago.
You were behind him.
You can't say that in Disneyland because he's just and then you just immediately suffocated and dragged away
through those tunnels underneath trash cans.
The best thing if you were wearing a Daikatana t-shirt already for some reason, the best thing would be to just go up to him and ask him for directions or something and act.
Right.
Just see if he said anything.
Yeah.
Sorry, do you know where Tomorrow? Oh, I thought you worked here. Sorry, I was looking for Tomorrowland.
Anyway, yeah.
And then you could say like, "Oh, maybe I meant Fantasyland." That's like it's burned, but it doesn't really mean anything. I don't know what that actually means when talking to John Romero.
Right.
You know,
it's something.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. I don't know what. I have no idea what died.
Oh yeah, no.
I can't make it
super. I'm just champing at the bit about the Richard Garriott story. He did these haunted houses at his house, like
at his house,
but it's like British's home at his manor.
Yeah, it had a name. I don't remember the name. That would have been a good thing to say.
Spooky House.
Spooky House. Yeah, Garriott's Spooky House.
Castle.
Lord British's Spooky.
That is probably his next iPhone game, right? I mean, like that's probably like all those guys. He's probably making a social game.
The stuff
or something.
No, he did, and it was tied into. There was a Ernest Cline's book Ready Player One, which was a little bit of a nerd sensation for a while. Did this sort of ARG where you could win a DeLorean, and you had to do all these video game challenges, and one of them was Garriott's like bullshit social game was just like
was
Facebook
it called Lord British's Scary House?
It was like it was the most boring. Like, it was like Facebook Garage Sale Tycoon. It was a game about like going to garage sales and buying like real world objects. I think in the hope
was
that
it
like
called Lord British's Garage Sale?
I don't think it was, but it, you know, we got a really big garage in Austin with
Hopefully
all the best, with all the best
that's
products.
all designed
in it.
around
Hopefully that
selling
game was,
his stuff.
Hopefully that game was secretly just a GUI for a Craigslist thing that was selling his actual stuff that he's trying to sell to replace his like lost fortune that he spent going into
you win and it just redirects you to Craigslist. It's just...
We saw him talk at like Dragon Con a couple years ago, and he just flat out said, he was like, I am only interested in going to space. So like, video games are a way for me to make money to go to space. That is a thing that I did once, and that is all I know how to do. And so if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to make a video game, make some money, and then go back into space. Anyway, he used to do these cool haunted house things, but then once he lost interest in it, he just stopped doing it, because that kind of like immersive experience for people is just a crazy pain in the ass. And if you don't have like a guy with a bunch of money and a lot of enthusiasm for it, and as much as you can say that like Disneyland has this gross, crass commercial aspect to it, that is what allows it to exist, right? And
it definitely has that. But and actually, I used to be more bothered by that than I am now. But at this point, I mean, it still kind of sucks a lot of the time when you're there. But like, definitely it is outweighed for me by the like, well, there isn't a lot of other things like this. So
yeah, so I mean, you just if you're expecting it ahead of time and you know like a shitty cheeseburger is going to cost $25 when I go in here, and then it's like, that's just part of the ticket price. I mean, Vegas does a lot of the same stuff, but it does a worse job.
Yeah, but Vegas is just way grosser. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I don't like Vegas at all. I like Disneyland. Anyway, I'm a video game developer.
Vegas is also like a video game.
You know what's weird?
I know, but it's all the
Vegas
things
is like
about
a free-to-play video game.
Vegas is all the things about video games that I dislike.
I could do a weird seg here, because I was playing SimCity recently, and I find that I tend to recreate Las Vegas in SimCity every time I play.
Like deliberately?
Just because like
because of who you are.
Yeah, it's just what I like.
What do you like that makes you do that?
Well, like
casinos,
all of the assets that are created for like landmarks tend to be higher detail, and so you
by
end up
SimCity.
I mean SimCity 5,
SimCity 2012,
SimCity,
right?
yeah, SimCity the new,
2013, whatever that was.
Yeah. But yeah, every city I make in that game tends to be Las Vegas, because you can build the Eiffel Tower. You can build like the Eiffel Tower and like the Empire State Building.
Right.
No matter where you put them in the city, you're in like
it's small enough that
it just looks like Vegas. And then you run out of things to do. You build a casino, and then it's just, oh god, I've inadvertently created Las Vegas again. Like there's just no getting away from it. Every time I make
you can build a casino and a stadium.
Yeah, exactly. I can't not do it. Anyway, I played the expansion of that game recently.
What is the expansion?
The expansion is I forget what it's called actually, but it's
the Cities of Tomorrow one?
Cities of Tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. It's basically just adds all of the stuff that was in SimCity 2000 at the end of it, like arcologies and weird like future towers and maglev trains, and honestly, I think there are probably a lot of subtle fixes and tweaks to the underlying systems. I know they fixed a lot of the traffic problems. I know they fixed a lot of that stuff. So going back to that game was enjoyable up to a point. The expansion kind of fixes the end game. Like the problem, one of the major problems with the original game was just you get to the end and the simulation completely broke down. The expansion takes care of that. You actually. By building these enormous towers, which you do in kind of like a sim tower fashion, you can build one level, and then you sort of choose what the next level represents.
Oh, cool.
Like it's a level 2 commercial thing or whatever.
So you can actually do mixed-use buildings.
Yeah,
like a sneaky way of adding a lot more surface area to the game,
exactly,
too.
Because they're not going to ever increase the size of the map. They've come out and said we can't do this for whatever reason.
You can do sky roads between upper levels too.
Yeah,
right?
you can. Yeah, you can do all this crazy stuff.
I want to play this now.
See, I didn't know anything about this expansion, and I was really
Why'd you
tired, and because I was just like sad one day, and I was like, I need a game where I'm going to spend a lot of time.
I'm sad, and I want to do something I expect to be terrible.
Well, yeah, no, I just saw a screenshot of it, and I was like, I'm going to play SimCity again because I just want to play a sim game. I'm going to give it another shot, and then I saw on the landing page. I mean, EA just fucking bought me. They just did the thing where they had an ad before before I clicked on play, and I went,
City of Tomorrow, interesting. Could be cool.
City of Tomorrow. Well, and I read a review, and it was not bad, so I bought it. But it's good. You can buy you can build maglev systems that sort of are created using a weird it's like it's basically the same system that bridges operate on, where you can sort of drag them around.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah. But they sort of naturally get dropped in over streets, and there's also this weird, I forget the name of the term, but
that's awesome because I missed that a lot. Having that.
Well, so there are two things that are really nice that they did. One is that if you're playing
Cities of Tomorrow is basically just what a normal city is now.
Yeah. You know what's weird?
Buildings with more than one kind of thing in them.
When I was driving...
Public transportation lines that coexist with the road. I guess
SimCity, I have a really strange relationship with SimCity because I feel like, one, I learned about a lot of things playing the original SimCity games, and it was weird for me driving to Disneyland and just observing how many wind turbines exist in the world now. And just recognizing that...
you drove down?
Yeah, and just recognizing that in SimCity 2000 in 1993, there were probably 6 in the United States, but in that game you could just drop them everywhere, and now that's just what we live in, is just as many wind turbines as we can possibly make. But, the game's really good. It's nice because you don't have to build any of the future stuff, and the game sort of retains the same... aesthetic as the vanilla game nothing actually will change until you place the first future building, and then sort of around that it slowly spreads.
Future gentrification occurs.
All the cars turn to smart cars just slowly as it spreads out. And there are other changes.
Is there any new music for that stuff?
Yeah, and it's good. It's really good. It sounds like they just laid in a future track.
The way the music layering works in that game was one of those everything
they layered in
about that game is so good.
Yeah, they layered in a future bass line into it and into a lot of that stuff. And then I think there are a couple new tracks.
There was a separate soundtrack for it for sale when I searched for the soundtrack.
Well, that's Chris Tilton who did that stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or I don't know if he did the expansion too.
Yeah, it's cool though. I mean, when you place that first building, it's just all of a sudden it just slowly shifts into the thing. It's exactly the kind of transition you would want.
That's awesome.
But yeah, once you get
to play this now.
Once you get 5 of those enormous towers, and then you go to another city and you observe because in the game how they're
there's a sort of
region plots.
There's the tilt shift photography of the out of focus city in the background.
When you see a future city, just these enormous gargantuan towers from the distance and that tilt shifted thing, it's fucking phenomenal. It looks like a shot out of, I don't know, like a Spielberg sci-fi film, from just seeing an enormous. It's like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek where you see they're in Kentucky and you just see an enormous thing far off in the distance. I don't know, it's really good. That's cool. I would recommend checking it out, actually.
Man, you were the most, out of all of us, you were the most initially down on the new SimCity because we were enamored with that demo, and you were just this is going to suck.
The demo was so great.
Yeah, the demo was great.
But you were the one who sussed it out.
I did. I sniped it. But I will caveat this recommendation with the...
I've only played 40 minutes of it.
No, I played it to its conclusion in terms of satisfaction, but it was only 3 hours ish, and then it still eventually you build as many levels of a tower as you can sustain. You build all of the future buildings, and then you're just kind of I'm going to just do this again in another city plot. And the problem is, they still haven't enlarged the size of the plots that you can, mess around with. So you can't connect cities to other cities. It's still at the end of the day, it still is. You get to the end and you're just frustrated that the game is not as,
Well, you can connect them to other cities systemically, right? You can have one city that does all of your water treatment and stuff. It's still
it's still
it's a bunch of little squares.
Asynchronous, weird
It
stuff.
feels more tenuous than you'd want it to.
Is it at least stable in terms of being able to play it without the authentication?
They're also bringing in an offline mode.
Oh, right. Because they did. Yeah, right.
Offline mode is coming in the next month or something like that. So that's good. But
it's just about at the point where you don't need it anymore because they've actually got their shit together.
Oh yeah, I haven't had any problems.
But it's also
probably true.
It's too late for them to save any face by doing that. It's got to just be because they don't want to pay to run the servers anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's at the point now where you can just mess around.
I think they're probably also hoping it'll juice sales a bit if they can make it splash PR wise.
Yeah.
There are worse places to be than having an expansion pack that someone likes a lot, that people are enjoying, and then also having that paired with turning off the thing everyone hated the most.
I just wonder if the kind of people who were really like, oh, why don't they give this an offline mode, are actually going to buy it.
Yeah,
that it
a lot
has
of
an
those people
offline
are
mode.
probably
There's a
not
lot
paying
of
attention.
They probably won't buy it, but I'll bet the first time somebody makes a really good mod for SimCity that can be played in offline mode, then people will buy it. Like it'll be the weird thing.
Are
where
people
like,
gonna?
oh, somebody made this crazy thing.
How
Check it
moddable
out.
do you think this game is?
I don't know.
I guess we'll find out when. Well, given
EA says it is very moddable. But
given
who
that
knows?
people already modded in offline mode unofficially as a hack like a year ago, I imagine people are going to be able to fuck with this thing a reasonable amount when there's no server required. But,
it sounds like it'll be fairly moddable, but I have no idea.
This is a dumb question, but it's not actually. How much is the Cities of Tomorrow expansion?
I think it's $20.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's not the worst.
it's not the worst. It's not. The
I mean,
best.
I'm a person who got so excited about SimCity that I paid $60 for the super deluxe,
Me too.
wacky.
Me too.
But the thing is, that was now so long ago.
Yeah, right.
That hearing that I can pay $20 to have an enjoyable, decent chunk of hours. I'm not expecting my expectation is not set.
It's not Civ 5 level, but it's like you can
just
play,
knowing that I could spend $20 now and have multiple hours of enjoyable SimCity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that seems kind of worth it to me. Yeah. I would have to reinstall Origin and I'd have to reinstall SimCity.
Yep,
because I did erase those.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I also got excited about it and bought it, the Deluxe Edition, right when it came out. And I would describe my experience with it as like a few hours of sort of disappointing play of something that's like, it's all right. I've definitely spent $60 on worse games than this.
I had a weird experience. My experience with it was weird in that I played it for way longer than I would play almost any other game that I was disappointed in.
I kept wanting it. I kept hoping that I would turn the corner and be like, finally, I got all three of my cities firing. I never did.
The nice thing is that Cheetah mode is in now, so you can actually speed through some. Like, if you just want to play around with this kind of city, you can just hit the Cheetah button and see if it works. So there's a lot more of like experimentation that you can run through. Yeah,
8x time.
So I did some like goofy things, like just made a complete bullshit mining town and then built a future city on top of the revenue off of all of that. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot more.
That was the only way I ever.
The thing I liked. Actually, that was the part I liked about the
having your all industrial town of miserable people who fed your affluent town. That was delicious.
Well, what's great is that I had like the oil derricks and everything going on, and then just built the sort of like there are two variants of the tower structures. They're like low rent, less future, like more Blade Runner-y style, and then there's like the high future aesthetic. And so like the mining town next to just the like cheap apartment mega tower, like, oh man, it's so good. It actually like it is satisfyingly, it blends together pretty well.
Yeah, that's cool.
I feel like maybe with the crazy future tower stuff, I can actually aesthetically justify my purchase of like the ability to just put in like Versailles and the arrondissements of Paris.
No, that was the best
because I can slam that shit in now, and then also have big fat towers coming out of it, and that's enjoyable.
Yeah, having
does Shift FUND work in this game? Can I just cheat myself a pretty looking city?
Well, if you build a mining town and earn like $10 million, which is what I did, you can just gift millions of dollars.
That's true. I can just exploit people in my shitty, just concentric rings of oil derricks next to bad houses.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Anything is possible. It's good. I don't know. I would check it out.
Cool.
I'm so surprised that you enjoyed a bunch of SimCity.
I was
that
really
coming from Nick Breckon.
Here's the thing: I was in a dark place, so maybe it's actually just shit.
Well, right. I mean, that's probably not the case.
Anything.
There's a decent chance that like I think our expectations and a lot of people's expectations, by and large, for the 2013 SimCity, are not high.
Yeah.
So it's easy to be surprised. Maybe by SimCity. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not hating this anymore is a very high.
I actively
thing.
enjoyed it for the amount of time that I played the expansion.
That's the best.
That's all I can say.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Games.
Mm-hmm. You guys want to take a break?
Yeah.
Thanks to our sponsor, Hover, an excellent domain name registration service. Visit hover.com and use the promo code REMO, R-E-M-O.
That's you.
It is me, for 10% off your domain name registrations. Last time we were sponsored by Hover, we asked people to let us know if they'd registered any website domains using our promo code, and it turns out a bunch of people did. So I'm just going to call it a couple, some particularly good and stupid ones. Richard Porkzak writes, "Hello there. I've registered these Idle Thumbs joke domains through Hover. PotatoDay.net and LeagueOfLegendsToday.net, both of which go to the Dota Today podcast website, so that's good." He also registered his own personal domains through it as well. He also says, "Keep up the great work, Richard. P.S. Hover is the best." So keep that in your brain. Tristan writes, "Hey Thumbs, you convinced me to get an account on hover.com and it's totally rad. So as a thank you, I purchased the website www.everybodylovesbrecken.com." He didn't want to actually make a website for it, so it just goes to idlethumbs.net.
So it just goes to Nick's old live journal.
Yeah. Please listen to our podcast at everybodylovesbrecken.com.
Yeah. Oh man. So I have one more, which is dumb, but a guy on the forums for the last Hover episode said that he went to Hover to try and register questions at idlethumbs.net, QUESTIONSAT, idlethumbs.net. But then he was stymied by it because Hover told him that someone else had already bought it. So that was good.
But also, if you type in questions at idlethumbs.net, it's a Hover
so someone
actually did it with Hover. So.
You could still get questions at idlethumbs.net.
Or .com. Who cares?
Okay, sure.
Also, one ridiculous thing is that the last time that Hover sponsored an episode, which was a couple weeks ago, I pointed out that we used it to get the domain names for our new game. And then, like an idiot, I just said the name of our domain or of our game on the ad, and we bleeped it out. But during the break, I just logged in and checked one checkbox that censored all that information from anyone ever actually reverse looking it up, and that was really convenient. So thanks to that, also.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, right, exactly. To that point, like on a more serious note, Hover is actually the company we use and have used before they sponsored us to register all of our domains, and they're so much more user-friendly than any other service I've used for that it's kind of...
Yeah, their tech support's good. The interface is good. It doesn't feel like you're going to get ripped off. It doesn't feel like weird scam-related activities are going to happen related to someone reverse engineering your Twitter username.
Like, is making the record private really just a checkbox instead of like a subscription service?
Yeah, there's no charging or anything. I don't think you just press a button and it goes away.
That's a significant improvement over every other registrar I've ever used.
This sounds like
this is amazing.
It's actually not.
You can't tell me that's true.
No, this is actually a real
thing. It was very nice to be able to just press a button and have things happen.
Yeah. So anyway, hover.com, use the promo code REMO, REMO, you get 10% off.
Yeah, off new domains.
Off new domains, yes.
So get some sweet new domains.
Thanks. Oh, and let us know if you do it. Questions at idlethumbs.net.
The email address, not the website. Thanks, Hover.
All right, thanks.
Video games.
TheKingdomofLoathing.com takes you to www.1.thekingdomofloathing.com, which play casino game, online game, The Kingdom, computer game, free online game, England, play game, car game, PC game, fun game.
Man.
So
right, I did register that and make the site that you just read. I forgot about that. I feel like
England, play game, car game, PC game, fun game.
I forgot about it because I was trying to sell all that real estate in Australia for some fucking reason.
Video games.
Okay, we're back.
Good, guys. I figured out a way to bring up Spelunky.
Oh, good.
Yes.
No, okay, you're right, though, because last week I talked a lot about my experiences so far in A Link Between Worlds. I haven't actually had a chance to play it.
I started playing that a little bit.
Oh, cool. Great.
Yeah, it's really good.
Because I played it. I just started getting into the Dark World, which is admittedly, I think, from what a lot of people have been saying online, not far enough to really, like... The Dark World, which is fucking called Lorule.
So good.
So
oh my god, is it really?
It is. Oh, it's like Dad Joke the game. It's
there's zero love for Dad when it comes to Lorule. More like no rule is what I accidentally said just now, then said it for real. I am also the dad in question. Anyway, whatever.
Fuck everyone.
A fair number of people said you're a fucking idiot for a lot of the stuff you said last week, and they didn't actually say that. They actually just said, I kind of see where you're coming from, but here's my experience playing the game. And it was very different for a lot of people, including you, Zach. Because we were talking about this in the office last week.
You had talked about what the value was of the rental system. And when I played the game, what I was kind of thinking about was like, imagining how they got to where they were. And I think that the decision to like separate the items from the dungeons was super good, because rather than having you go into the dungeon and then you have to solve one puzzle to get to the item and then you use that item to solve the rest of the puzzles in the dungeon is just centered on what you do with this one item. It is just the second half. And that does like a bunch of different cool things at the same time. It makes the dungeons way smaller, way more focused on what you're trying to do. And it makes it so like, even when I've tried to replay A Link to the Past recently, not having played it enough times to have it totally memorized, like if I walked away in the middle of playing a dungeon, I would come back and just be kind of lost, because at any point when you're in one of those sort of traditional style dungeons, half of the stuff in there is either not accessible to you or half of the stuff is like not... It's part of the first puzzle and you're on the second, you know, it's part of finding the thing and you're on the finding the boss, or it's part of finding the boss and you're on the finding the thing. And in this one, because the item comes from outside, like the dungeons are just a lot more focused on what they are, which is puzzles about a specific thing, like puzzles using a specific game mechanism. I think that they wouldn't have wanted to just make all of the items trivially available for like no money in the beginning, because then that would feel sort of cheap. But making them super expensive, I think, would kind of feel like gating in a way that felt really artificial. It was like, all right, in order for you to get the bow and arrow to go into this first dungeon, you need to go like grind out 1,000 rupees. And I don't think they wanted it to feel like it's a game where getting the treasure for like you like solve a puzzle in a cave and it's like, oh, 100 rupees. And instead of being like, oh crap, it's just rupees, I don't care about this. Like, oh, 100 rupees. That like gets me closer to owning the item that I want, instead of having to like go back and buy it again every time I die. But like, I was thinking about how like in Spelunky getting money.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. In Spelunky, getting money feels good. And it's because you can only use it to like make your experience better. Right? It's not, there is never a point where it's like, all right, you cannot progress in the game unless you have $400 or $5,000.
Oh, I see.
Right? So it's never, it isn't a thing that like makes you resent it as a mechanic, because it doesn't feel like gating. It just feels like a system. And I think that
there's one exception to that I'll bring up, but go ahead.
The shortcut guy, or
no?
Oh,
don't try to guess. Just keep going.
No, sorry.
Well, I'm just saying it doesn't matter. I want to hear your point.
Sure. No, but I think that like the way that A Link Between Worlds, I can't even think of the name of it. The way that it did it, I think,
Zelda,
ended up being a little weird. The rental thing feels a little weird, but I think that they got to that from a good place, because they did, from the accounts of everybody that I've talked to about this, they've like made a game in which collecting rupees feels pretty good. Like it feels like you're being rewarded with something when you find some money. And that has not traditionally been a thing in Zelda games. Like even the first one, where there was a lot of stuff that was like, just, you can afford to buy the candle, and so this opens up all these other things. Like you can afford to buy bombs, and it opens up all these other things. It took like the amount of rupees that you could carry was 255, so like it just didn't take very long. Like you sort of always had enough. It never, except for a handful of like really optional things, it never felt like a thing that was a really meaningful goal to like, you know, there was a certain point at which you didn't have any, and then there was a certain point at which you had the maximum amount, so it might as well have not been a system in that. And I think that the rental thing, combined with expensive like final purchases of the items and a bunch of places where you could get a bunch of rupees, resulted in like a really satisfying set of systems that you could engage with all at once, instead of like this has rupees because Zelda games have rupees and not for any real reason.
A lot of people also have told me that the actual bulk of the dungeons in the Dark World are ones that you can get people have said their experience differed very much from their friends in terms of the order in which they completed them and some of the methods that they used. Did you find that to be the case as well, or not?
I didn't talk to a whole lot of people about the ordering, but the ordering was more or less random, because you just go to the... I mean, I guess if you rented all the items and always had all the items with you all the time, then you were going to just go to whatever dungeon you got to next, which... And even like the rest of the stuff, it's not really gated in the Link to the Past way, because like you just find the thing that lets you pick up rocks, but you don't need the thing that lets you pick up rocks, because the wall thing lets you just go around them, right? So it's like A Link to the Past was pretty open to begin with. Like just going back and trying to play that critically, like where can I go at any given point in the game? It's like surprisingly broad in terms of the amount of
you can like get on Death Mountain pretty early.
Like, and you can go to a lot of places, and it isn't until you get to the like very end terminals where there's actually like, you know, sort of new game verbs hidden that it starts to lock you off. You know, but in this one, you just go there. Like, it's not locked at all.
Right.
After the Dark World starts, at least.
So
you were going to say something.
The thing I was going to say about Spelunky is that it's an interesting point you make for sure about the about money being sort of an additive thing rather than like a gate. The only exception to that really is one of the things that's cool about Spelunky is that just all through it there are weird, like deliberately very obscure, hidden items and like processes you use that you carry out with those items that like open up like long-term secret locations and stuff, including hell, the kind of secret fifth world of the game.
There's like
you can only get to
sort of one secret path through it.
Yeah, that like requires
right,
you getting all four of these weird items and like doing these specific things and so on. But I mean, at a certain point, like when you've reached a certain level of play, that just becomes a default thing you're going to attempt to do.
That's just
every
the
game.
Like,
and the one of the steps of that is to get to this secret shop, the black market, and then acquire this item, the Ankh, which you use later. The Ankh costs 50,000 gold, which is really the only thing in the game that like. I'm just going to assume, for the purpose of the discussion, that like getting to hell is now just what the game is, because I think at a certain point, again, after you've played the game enough, it just becomes what the new path in the game is you want to get to hell. So you're always going to try and do that, and to do that, you ostensibly need to spend 50,000 gold, which does become like, at least on its face, like a hard monetary gate that feels very different than the sort of just additive nature of money that the game otherwise has. But what that means then is that like ripples out into a further kind of default play style, which is just, okay, well, I'm just going to murder all the shopkeepers in the black market so I can just pick up the Ankh without buying it.
That's like the sort of like double pro, like the next like big difficulty gate.
Right, exactly. Like, and that's an even more meta. That's like a meta thing, whereas the secret path is codified into the game design. But the stealing the Ankh from the black market, that's entirely a meta strategy. Like, not to say that people couldn't just all independently come up with it on themselves if they played the game enough, but there's nothing in the game system that codifies that. That's just it. Sucks to have to collect 50,000 gold and then lose it all just to get this item that I have to get anyway.
But the systems do kind of inevitably go in that direction, right? Because it's like, well, I can either get essentially every power up in the game for free by robbing the black market, or I can spend all of
sometimes you don't. One of the cool things about the game to me is that because it's all randomly generated based on a seed, sometimes the stuff in the black market just isn't that desirable.
Yeah, sometimes you already have it all.
You already have most of it, and so at that point you're taking this huge risk of robbing for very little payout other than this item that you basically need anyway. So at that point it doesn't feel like you're getting anything. Like when you get the Ankh, it doesn't feel like you're getting something because it's like you're gonna have to get
right. You're like
trying
this
to
is
get
just of course I bought this because it's not like it's.
But I realized also several days ago. Sorry, we're talking about this.
What did we allow to happen?
Okay,
hey, God forbid you talk about video games on this podcast.
Make my next point, and then I'll fucking stop. Okay, so I realized last week that at this point, like I've played this game so much that a lot of the game is routine to me, but I still really enjoy it every single time I play. Like I never don't enjoy playing Spelunky ever, but in particular, the black market is the thing that that's still like really has like my emotions are heightened as I like begin the like shopkeeper murder run.
Well, it's the first like hard thing that you do.
It's not just that. I was thinking about this. It's also the only thing that you know is a risk. Everything else in Spelunky, it's like it could be a risk. Like the things on the screen are like perceptible. Like that game is a simulation, but the parts of the simulation are all very simple and comprehensible once you've played the game enough and you know what all the pieces are. And so you're like, well, I can basically piece out what's going to happen if I trigger this trap. Like the arrow's going to like fall over here and hit the spider, and the spider is going to fall and like
you stop like accidentally getting hit by arrows when you're standing in the wrong place when you trigger a trap.
You still make those dumb mistakes eventually, but it's because you just slipped up mainly. You know, not because you like your brain was unable to comprehend it, and you miscalculate things still sometimes too. But on the black market, you go into it knowing just crazy shit's going to happen, and it's going to be totally
you're
bonkers.
About to trigger the most chaotic thing that there is, the most fast-paced and unpredictable thing that there is.
Yeah, and
I wonder,
I love that. It's such a crazy feeling, and it's
on
great.
the arc of a serious Spelunky player's daily challenge career, I'm guessing that there tends to be a moment where it's the first time you get to hell on the daily challenge, and then after that there are just death after death after death after death in the jungles because you suddenly are like, all right, well, I guess I'm robbing the black market on every single daily challenge,
right? Yeah,
because that's the
But at this point, I die more frequently because I just make a dumb mistake in the mines or something. My runs have been either I die somewhere between 1-3 and 2-3, or I make it to Olmec or Hell. It's there's very little in between. It's bizarre. Anyway, we can stop talking about Spelunky, Jake.
It's actually interesting, but it just gets so off into space that if you haven't at least watched a couple playthroughs to internalize the vocabulary, it's just fucking nuts.
Yep.
So, Nick, I hear you've been playing the new Zelda game.
I mean, not enough to talk about it. I'm sorry if I implied that I had. I'm looking forward to playing it now that you guys talked about it, though.
All right.
Sweet.
That was classic. I didn't know that's what you were banking on. I would have warned you. I would have if that was going to be.
I thought either you were going to have. I thought you were either going to have
talk about Spelunky because Nick's got something very important to say.
You were either going to have.
Go ahead.
Something to say. Or
this would happen.
Or this would happen. So either way, I win.
Do you think you're going to keep playing the Zelda game, Jake?
Yes.
Yeah. It's everybody that I talk to who plays it is yep, this is the first Zelda game in 15 years that I've actually played through to the end. They obviously did something right.
I played Wind Waker all the way through. That was probably Zelda, Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, and this are probably the only Zelda games that I'm going to complete. Although Wind Waker was almost 10 years ago now, I guess.
Did you ever play any of the Game Boy ones or any of the weird
Oracle of whatever and stuff?
No, the first game,
Phantom Hourglass.
The first original Game Boy game was incredible.
Link's Awakening.
Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the first Zelda game I ever had.
Oh, that game is
because I never had
that was basically
that's
the one that was the sequel to Link to the Past. I think is the shtick because it was Zelda, then Link to the Past, and then Link's Awakening. Well, it's the one that had all the same art and all that.
Yeah.
I'm sure in the whatever fucking Skyward Sword canon of the 3 Zelda verses.
Link's Awakening is just a dream. The whole game is a dream sequence.
Well,
spoilers, Jesus, man.
Oops.
He awakens.
Yes.
That was
a Link Awakens. Oh, that's Halo 4.
Yeah.
That's the marketing campaign we're going to get when Nintendo finally puts their content out on Xbox One.
Right.
An ancient Link Awakens. Link's Awakening.
Yeah. It'll probably.
Phantom Hourglass was pretty good.
I played a lot of it, but I just never got through it.
A lot of people didn't like the central dungeon that you had to keep going through over and over again with slight variations on your abilities each time, but I don't know, I thought it was cool. I'm glad that in this one you can just move around by moving.
That sounds Majora's Mask-y. I never got into that game, even though
Me neither.
So many people say that game is
good. People didn't get into what?
Majora's Mask.
Oh, I never played that.
Thing. It's like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are like Graceland and Rhythm of the Saints, right? Like people who know about music. People who are 10 years older than you guys, and I'm an asshole, and know about music, will be like, oh no, Rhythm of the Saints, super good. And Graceland, that's just pedestrian bullshit for babies. They're like,
Graceland
no way.
is like Nick Breckon's favorite album.
Graceland,
So you're walking on
no. What I'm saying is Graceland is obviously the best fucking album, and anybody who says that Majora's Mask or Rhythm of the Saints is better than that.
I was about to jump across this table.
You are acting like you're, no, it's like
there was about
being,
yeah, that silence was actually just analogy confusion.
Sure. No, what I'm saying is like oh god, what's another example? And okay, this one is actually going to piss you guys off. Like Pinkerton, I don't fucking like Pinkerton.
Oh, I like Pinkerton.
Like
that's fine.
The first Weezer album is real fucking good, and Pinkerton just couldn't listen to it. Same with Majora's Mask, and same with Rhythm of the
You're just
Saints.
describing taste being different.
No, it is a very specific mechanism by which people who are very evenly divisible into two separate categories operate in specific arenas. Paul Simon albums, Weezer albums, and Ocarina of Time versus Majora's Mask. Yeah, exactly. Man.
I mean, I do know from having enough conversations with you about various things, I think in a lot of ways...
Your taste is shitty.
I think we often fall on the other end of the divide you're describing.
Sure,
Just between the two of us. Which is interesting because you're like a thoughtful person, so it's always like
you're not an idiot, so it's right.
No,
because you don't look like the biggest dipshit in the world, so I don't understand why.
Well, because the way you're describing it now is just like it's hilarious, but like.
No, I mean, it's just one of those things where I feel like God, I had a conversation with Sean earlier today. I was like, oh, well, maybe if I was smarter, I would know that I shouldn't like this thing that I like. But like Majora's Mask was so aggravating in a way that I can imagine. Like I can imagine hearing a bunch of interesting stories about somebody playing Majora's Mask. Like I can understand a bunch of interesting stories about what was going on while they were recording Rhythm of the Saints and how important it was in the political landscape of the moment. But like, I'd rather listen to Graceland and I'd rather play Ocarina of Time. Like,
but I mean,
but that huge moon.
This is pretty good. Some people are different about this kind of thing, right? Like God, we're really getting off the beaten path here. But like, God, possibly
when does that happen on this episode?
Possibly my favorite Pink Floyd album is The Final Cut, which nobody fucking likes. Like, it's just not. It's well, I don't know. I mean, Dark Side of the Moon is probably the best one and probably ultimately my favorite. But like. The one I've listened to the most is The Final Cut, and it's the weirdest one. It's basically like a Roger Waters solo album, but it's like raw as hell and like weirdly naked, and there's just something about that I find very magnetic and constantly fascinating, and I'm like, I will listen to that thing for fucking ever, but like if you were making a list of like the best Pink Floyd albums, you'd never be able to find like a committee of people that would put it on it, and like that doesn't matter like how many times you say that, I'm not going to ever change my mind about just liking it more. And it's not like an academic opinion that I'm like, I think this one is like the most complex. And it's like, no, I actually just do like listening to it more, but I recognize most people wouldn't. But like, that's just it.
So by this test, right? You should get a goddamn Majora's Mask cartridge and play it because it might be your favorite
see what
Zelda
happens.
game.
Like maybe it's interesting to me because when there are really like crisp divides like that, I think that's probably drawing attention to interesting things to think and talk about the specific works that are being compared.
Oh, for sure.
And
definitely.
That's
absolutely the case.
Like I think
you're saying Majora's Mask sucks.
No, I'm saying Yoshi's Island sucks. That's the
podcast.
Yep. No, I'm just making sure this is my last appearance.
We gotta. You'll have to just come back on a later episode to talk about why Yoshi's Island sucks and why you're an idiot.
Okay. I can talk about both of those things at great length.
I can see why you would say Yoshi's Island sucks.
Sure.
It's an easy game for babies.
Yoshi's Island is super fucking hard, and I don't understand why anyone likes it.
Okay, are we going to actually do this or not? Because we could do this later.
I think the challenge level of Yoshi's Island is very low, and I think it's very pretty.
Wow,
Whereas you think it's hard and ugly.
No, like I
amazing.
played Yoshi's Island for like an hour, and I could not get past the first place where there were fucking fireballs.
Weird. I beat that whole game.
So what you're saying is we should at some point live stream Yoshi's Island.
Oh yeah. No, let's do it.
That'd be really fun.
That would be good, actually.
When we get,
God, we should do that. We should do a stream series where we find two of us who are on the complete opposite sides of these Zach's weird divides.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then just have one person screaming the whole time.
Sure.
No, wrong, bad, wrong, Graceland. When we get internet that will let us stream at a higher resolution than 320 by 200.
Is there any way to legally stream Yoshi's Island at this point?
You plug a Super Nintendo into a capture card and stream it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We have a video-based capture card on the Thubs computer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can do it. Nintendo's. I mean, I don't think Nintendo likes it when you stream their games. I think if you're streaming, like
they generally don't. But
they don't like when you do anything with their games.
They feel that you streaming their games is you stealing their game, which is very confusing to me.
Yeah, I mean, they tried to get all those fucking Smash Brothers.
Get Smash Brothers out of Evo. Why would you do that? Yeah. Oh my god!
They stopped doing that though.
But they still
only after people screamed. Like, well, they kept trying.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever. Reader mail?
Oh sure.
Mail from you, the readers? From you, Nick Breckon?
Zack Johnson writes, Yoshi's Island sucks.
Yoshi's Island's a fat piece of shit.
First
listen to Video Game Hot Dog.
Graceland
I'm going to call it Video Game
shitty.
Hot Dog singular.
Come on. Hey, that's when I disagree with it. I'm going to yell at that guy. The guy that doesn't like Graceland. I'm yelling at him.
Oh.
He wrote in. He didn't write in.
What? No.
Jesse Thamer writes, on Banner Saga and Story, hey Thumba Doodle Baboos, long-time Podblast receptacle, first-time shitty email writer. Wow.
Register all of those domains.
That assessment. I completely understand your issues with the Banner Saga being lore heavy, and you want to just get to the next battle. But I wonder if the fact that Chris and Sean were playing together might have soured the dialogue parts a bit. I approach this game like I would reading a novel. I sit with a large mug of coffee, get as comfortable as possible, and get prepared to be sucked into the world. I had no problems following the story. I have a love for some characters which makes me sad if they die, a hatred for others which makes me wish they would, and I can't wait to see where it's going. I feel like if I were to play this with someone else, I would not be able to follow it, just like trying to read a book while having a conversation. I'm not saying that the writing's incredible, but it's closer to a novel than most video game dialogue I've read. It's like an old choose-your-own adventure book. To be honest, I didn't even know the game had a turn-based combat system for a while during development, but I did know from the beginning that it was a story and lore-based experience with incredible art, and my god, that map. I must point that the criticism of not knowing who you are at the start is valid. I was very confused for a while as well. But it's not true that you make decisions from the perspective of other characters during a given chapter. Every dialogue choice you make is from the mouth of the same person until the next chapter when you are someone else. Okay, well then that indicates what we were confused about. The problem is it doesn't always show your character on screen during these choices, sometimes showing the person you're talking to, which is likely a poor choice. It's easy enough to figure out if you've been paying attention to the dialogue, but I understand why you might not have been doing so. This email is pretty much useless and is me saying, Dur, I like the thing you didn't, but there it is. Have a wonderful day, Jesse Thamer. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, which is that we weren't probably playing the game in the ideal situation to experience something that is very text heavy.
Although I did, and I had the same reaction.
Exactly. I want to add the thing that I think we might not have properly communicated when we talked about it last week, which is that both Sean and I had actually played this game for a while on our own before we played it together. Basically, the reason we played it together is because Sean kind of wanted a sanity check on the opinions he'd already formed about the game, and so I went over to his house and we played it together. But that was coming from a point of having already played it. I'll also say that probably this game would have had an uphill battle for me on the fiction stuff to begin with, because I already just don't really enjoy stuff that's super plot heavy and tons of characters explicating political situations and lots of details.
Unless it's historically based or is about the British spy industry.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, I will say that I actually don't like most historical fiction, to be honest, which is why I was so amazed at how much I loved Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. But I think Hilary Mantel is I'm convinced now after having read a couple of her books, she's actually just a genius. And I could read a ton of other historical fiction and not ever be as into it as I was that. That book is an extraordinary accomplishment. That book and its sequel, Bring Up the Bodies, it's an amazing, amazing work of historical fiction. But I am not generally drawn to that stuff, actually. But yeah, I don't know. I have noticed that in response to our episode last week, there are a lot of people who indicated that one of the reasons they were so excited about this game was because they kind of got sold on the fiction and the world and the characters, because that, I guess a lot of that was highlighted during the Kickstarter campaign, which is totally valid. That makes a lot of sense. And my experience was just, I didn't pay attention to any of that stuff, which maybe is my fault. I don't know. But I knew of this game as a turn-based strategy game first and foremost. So I had been primed for the last 18 months or however long it was since I backed the Kickstarter. I guess that was just the thing that appealed to me, because I'm not a fantasy fiction guy. I just don't enjoy that stuff in the first place. So to me, the thing I latched onto is one, it's beautiful. That was true, and I still feel that way. Also, it's a turn-based strategy game, and I like those a lot, and I did like that part of the game.
Yeah.
So there were the parts of the game that I was excited about, and as it turns out, I really liked those parts. Then there was the part that I guess I just didn't even realize was there, and I just didn't really like it.
There's a lot going on in that game. There's just a lot of different...
Right.
And it just, for me, I had the same reaction where, particularly with games like that, I find that I'm playing it for a specific reason. And I tend to just, by extension, cut out the parts of the game that I'm not playing it for. Mm-hmm. And to the detriment of, I think, the dialogue stuff, I didn't, that stuff to me was not the stuff that I came for, or expected, or really at the end of the day enjoyed as much as the other stuff. Therefore, I'm just clicking through it. And that happens to me in a lot of games. Well, and so I don't really, I don't know. Yes, it's a weird byproduct of the hybrid sort of experience.
And I'm the exact same way, which is why I actually felt kind of bad about our discussion last week.
Yeah.
Because if I hadn't been talking about it with someone who already felt the same way I did about that stuff, I probably just wouldn't have talked about it. I would have just talked about the stuff that I liked. and just maybe made a comment about not being crazy about the fiction, but that would have been it. Because that's like how I would talk about XCOM, for example. Like, I don't really care about the dialogue in XCOM. I don't think it's that good. But I guess the main difference for me is, one, there's so much less of it, so it's so much easier to just... Like, you can tell the people who made XCOM didn't get precious about their fiction. You know, because you can just...
Right.
It's so much easier to skip that stuff.
The other thing is, I also didn't... Well, I don't know. I don't want to belabor this. Also, I don't know what you guys talked about, really. I didn't listen to the episode. I hate really this podcast, but continue.
Jesus, Nick. The other thing I'll say really quickly about XCOM as comparison, because someone did bring up XCOM after the last week and said, well, that's what's so amazing about that fiction. Yeah. The other thing is there's actually like a lot of gameplay stuff in between the battles in XCOM that I love, that I really, really love a lot, whereas the gameplay stuff you do in between the battles in... the Banner Saga, that stuff I also just coincidentally, not related to the fiction, also just didn't find as interesting. And so it was these two things that I wasn't super into that you have to spend a lot of time clicking through before you get to the part that I liked a lot.
I mean, I think that's the danger in, like, because in the Banner Saga, I feel like they took all the dialogue stuff and then tied it back into, like, you could make decisions in the dialogue stuff that would just, like, kill a bunch of your units or, like, kill an important guy. And then in the battles, you could screw up and lose a guy and then he wasn't there for the next dialogue thing. And so, like, somebody who's not into both of those things, the fact that they're both so tightly...
Well, and the other problem, too, is I felt like, I mean, there was so much dialogue stuff that I didn't know when a decision like that was going to appear, like when to care. I didn't really quite know like what to expect from one situation to another.
It sounds from reading about this game that was a super, super, super deliberate choice. Based on a few other games.
It was. Yeah.
Like the intent is to make sure that you pay attention to all of it.
Right, but the byproduct of that is that I pay attention to none of it, though, because I don't really want to pay attention to all of it.
Exactly. That's an admirable goal, I think.
Yeah.
But it didn't play out in a way that allowed me to like... there's just no way I'm going to read every single word that is.
And for somebody who wasn't, for somebody who's not inclined to skip through that kind of crap to get to the part of the game that they're interested in, it was probably really great that those important things happened as a result of their choices that they really cared about.
And we heard from a bunch of people for whom that was the case. Like,
it's interesting.
A lot of those people wrote in, and that's totally
like
fine.
Its quality on that axis is a thing that made it just less of a good experience for you. Whereas, like, two separate games that were each of those systems really heavily focused on,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's why one of the reasons we brought up sort of not necessarily games that are similar, but games that have that half of it in ways that I enjoyed more, which would include things like Crusader Kings 2, The Yogg. I can't remember the other examples we brought up. I think even FTL maybe came up. But like, there's a lot of games that have stuff like that in them that I just ended up enjoying more. But I just feel like they're balanced a little differently. Anyway, I don't want to rehash the same thing we already basically spent an hour on last week. But anyway, whatever. Games.
I was talking to Sean about the stuff in FTL specifically, like just the little events and the places where FTL does deliver a little bit of writing and how it makes me a little sad that what those things basically turn into is like tab out and look at the wiki to see what each of these things are.
I don't want to hold up FTL. I don't want to hold up FTL.
Yeah, specifically in FTL. Yeah. Like it's, and
I don't want to say that's like a paragon of this shit.
Sure, and it would have been maybe better if it had just like maybe after you've seen them once, it spells out. It spells out what the decisions are going to do instead of trying to like be that fiction.
Yeah. I think
the main takeaway
stuff in the Banner
is punchiness, I guess.
Yeah, the stuff in the Banner Saga was just surrounded by so much other text. Like the decisions I had to make were just prefaced by just an enormous amount of content, and I just felt like if it had been boiled down to its sort of bare essence, like this is the choice you're making right here. Here's the necessary information. That would have been the version of that would have been easier for me to consume. Anyway.
All right. S. Neckquest writes, Shadow
It sounds like
RSS.
a code name for Nick Breckon for some reason.
Hey, Thumbs. Recently I've been catching up on the podcast, and the discussion in episode 129 about making a Shadow RSS feed that would send out a nonsense cast recording to 1 in every 1,000 listeners got me thinking about unique experiences in games. I forget who exactly, but I recall a comedian doing a bit about how funny it would be if the studio behind Titanic had set out one reel to a single cinema in which the ship reached its destination without incident. Confused audiences would go and tell their friends who would obviously assume they'd gone insane. Games often have scripted, supposedly random encounters, like those in Red Dead Redemption, in which you go to help an NPC in distress and are surprised by bandits. The problem being that they occur in such high frequency that every player will see them repeatedly, shedding any illusion of uniqueness. Do you think there's any value in creating random scripted events with such a low chance of appearing that only a tiny percentage of players encounter them, or would these kinds of experiences be better served by more emergent gameplay systems? Anyway, many thanks for the podcast from Zhejiang, China. I'm sure I'm not saying that right. Scott. I think that's cool. I mean, I think what might be even cooler is to have something that has a low frequency of occurring, and then once it happens, it's flagged as it has happened, and it can never happen again.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I thought of.
Yeah, I also don't think that has to happen at the exclusion of emergent systems.
Definitely.
Yep.
I'm always super interested in stuff like that happens in MMOs because I feel like you can get away with doing stuff in an MMO that relies on there being a population of people and a population of people that are inclined to communicate with each other and like put, like collect a wiki of stuff. But when you do stuff where one person's experience is dramatically different than another person's experience in a way that actually affects their gameplay, they'll just revolt.
The thing in an MMO, they would revolt.
Yeah.
The one of those that
Which
I
makes a single-player game, I think that's more okay. Or people accept it more.
It was in Star Wars Galaxy, there was like a group of people who just continued to religiously play this game as stormtroopers and would drill and do all sorts of stuff. So they just decided they would spawn Darth Vader, who came down in a command ship and said, "Good work, keep it up," and then left. If I'm not mistaken, God, I might be completely fabricating that, but I'm nearly sure that I saw screenshots of that. God. I'm like, that is out of control. Like, that's a very handmade one of those, and not like built into the game. That's not.
I've talked about Gemstone 3 before, but
about what?
Gemstone 3, the mud,
the
early mud thing. But in that game, there used to be a guy who was basically like a traveling salesman, and it was just a programmer from the game who would just come into town every month and just set up shop. And if you had enough money, and people would like pool their money, knowing that this guy was coming to town, and he would just basically handcraft like in whatever game tool he had, just items that were just increasingly insane, just like jackets that could hold like 100 items that were, and then like they had like paragraph descriptions so that when you looked at them, it would be like Lord Breckon's. You look into the depths of Lord Breckon's jacket and see your own face. It just would go on and on and on. Like I don't know, stuff like that's really.
Do you still have any of those items?
I probably. I would have to like log into my account.
I mean, Kingdom of Loathing is a game that's small enough that we can kind of get away with stuff like that. It invariably upsets people. Like, if we do something where it's like, all right, this guy's here, he's selling this thing, it's only there today. Yeah. Like, somebody was like, I was at my grandma's this weekend. You guys are assholes because I should be able to have this thing. And it's like, things that make it an interesting world, things that make it an interesting story are things that are not necessarily going to be like...
Well, can you do that without needing, like, physical evidence of it, but just have wacky things that happen where it's like if you were lucky enough to be there for that, so be it, but you don't get like a unique badge that you couldn't get if you weren't there.
Yeah, I mean, I find that kind of thing a little less interesting just because so one of my favorite things about a certain era of World of Warcraft is that the way that they did the sort of alchemy system, there were certain things that like every time you made a potion, you had like a 1 in a billion chance of figuring out how to make some other kind of potion. And there would be like one guy on the server that knew how to make that potion. Sure, yeah. And so that guy could then sell it in the auction house and it had his name on it. And if you got it, then you knew where it came from. And to me, that is so much more interesting of a story than like, nope, if you make 10,000 potions, you are guaranteed to learn how to make this other potion. And then everybody can make it. And it's just another fucking commodity. It's just like another thing that's exactly like everything else. But like the guy who's like, well, we need this potion in order to beat this raid boss. So the situation in which this one guy is the only guy that can make it and he doesn't like us is a situation that just ruins my experience of the game. And so they invariably just like, you know, they file all the teeth off of stuff like that. And it's like, it seems to me like that is all of the sacrifices that you make to gameplay and to user experience to have an MMO should be in the service of something. And they're not if you're just sort of pandering to the complaints that everybody's experience should be like as satisfying as a single player game, right?
So this is something that I think is games being systemic in nature, I think just presents a challenge in this inherently, which is that the things that make for the best memories are often not the things that make for what seem like the most satisfying or equitable game experience in the moment. And so I think MMOs have to deal with that to like a super high degree, which is, I mean, everyone loves having memories of that, which is why people talk about Ultima Online.
Podcast exists.
Well, yeah, that. Yeah. But also why people have such fond memories of stuff like Ultima Online, like the sort of waste, like just Badlands years of games like that. But if you're the person who's like perceives themselves to be suffering from that when it's actually happening, like if you perceive yourself to be getting the short end of the stick, you're just you're just frustrated by it. And that sucks, right? Like that's just sort of to some degree irreconcilable, which is shitty.
What's interesting now, I feel like, with Twitch and just online video in general, I feel like some of that might be slightly mitigated, and that you can now just log in and see what that guy's doing, and sort of.
Well, that's still why I like reading about Even will never play it.
Yeah. But I mean, like, you sort of get the hit of like experiencing what that guy is able to do.
I mean, if that could, if
Eve explosion,
watching people play video games on Twitch could foster a kind of empathy that would allow you to just like somebody else had a cool experience and I can feel happy for them without feeling ripped off and bitching about it on the forum.
But and I agree with you totally. But I think a lot of the reasons people actually end up spending enough time in MMOs for that thing to happen is because maybe that, but also at least
they want to.
Based on my own experience, the only MMO I ever really played was World of Warcraft for about 6 months, and I obviously I can't speak for anyone else playing MMOs, but I definitely know myself that after I'd played it for a certain amount of time, the sort of like magic of discovery definitely was basically gone, and I was just playing it because I play it. And I think after several months of that is when I stopped playing because it kind of just freaked me out. But like I definitely went a while of just in that mode where I wasn't playing it and having any of that shit in my brain. It was just like, I'm playing this because it's what I do now, and I want the most optimum path to everything, and I want to know what the shortest path to point B is, and I want to know how to level the fastest, and I want to know how to do this raid in the way that's most efficient, or the least bullshit for our guild. And like those became not the reasons to keep playing, but like the atmosphere in which I did keep playing. I was compelled to play rather than like necessarily playing for these like ephemeral joy, which is why I got into it in the first place, of like finding new locations and exploring this world, and it was magical.
And it sucks that
but I just couldn't, like, the way MMOs are made, they want you to just keep playing indefinitely, and you do that by like exploiting systems that puts people's brains on a treadmill.
You think had Darth Vader landed and said "keep up the good work," you would have said "fuck off, I'm trying to wait for this mob"?
No, that is such a like crazy,
especially if he'd landed in the World of Warcraft.
I can't say anything but this as a guy that runs a fucking MMO, but like I don't think that in World of Warcraft, for instance, I don't think that there is like exploitative intent in the design. I think that the way that some of the systems,
I can't speak to intent. I just know what was going on in my brain. Sure,
but that is the thing. World of Warcraft is a game that, for a certain percentage of its players, it turns them into people who are like the worst at enjoying it, because all they care about is repeating the most boring aspects of it and doing the spreadsheets and doing the bookkeeping of figuring it out.
There must be a lot of them, because that's what the end game turns into. It seems most of the time.
Sure, the way that I approach it as a player is I play until I get to that point, and then I just turn it off until an expansion comes out, and I can go explore some new stuff and have some novel experiences. And when I find myself starting to go down that rabbit hole, I'm like, look, I'm not enjoying this. But and that's the thing. It's like I don't think that there is anyone that is doing that on purpose. I don't think there's anybody that's creating that experience on purpose.
Some people trying.
Well, okay, sure.
Yes, there's a guy in Squat and Gobble who's there every night for 3 hours with his headset on. Yes.
What?
Yeah, there's a guy in our Squat and Gobble who plays World of Warcraft every night for 3 hours.
Also, there's a place called Squat and Gobble.
Squat and Gobble is a local San Francisco weird food chain that's actually good.
Yeah, I mean, I think people play the end game of MMOs for all sorts of different reasons. But I don't. I experienced what you experienced, Chris, and then I got caught up in it and I stopped playing. But I do think that there are people who play it for. I enjoy hanging out with my guild mates.
And that part I also had, and without that, I would have stopped playing a lot sooner.
Yeah. But my point is that nobody was trying to put you in that situation where you were wasting your life playing this. Like they were trying to make the best experience for the players that they could, and I think that
this is a hard thing to do.
It is, right? That you can't put novel experiences in front of people as fast as people can consume them, right? And so, like, I think maybe just there's something fundamentally flawed about an MMO in general that makes it so it gravitates towards systems that are going to push people towards that like shitty experience of it if they're the kind of person that like really wants to be good at a game, as opposed to just like, I'm going to take from this whatever I can get of value from it and then just like, walk away from it when I'm done. And it's like, I would rather World of Warcraft be there for somebody like me who can play it super casually and go in one month out of every year and play it and then just walk away. Then that means that there are like because it exists like that, there are going to be people that get super into it and just have this shitty experience. But it's like, yeah, what are you going to do, right? But you know, there are people who probably have an unhealthy relationship with Kingdom of Loathing, as dumb as that is, because it's just such a low fidelity thing. Like telling somebody like, oh, I have to go to rehab because of this thing. And they look at it into this thing, like
which frames.
Also, yeah, no, it has frames. That's bad. Frames are good. That's my other unpopular opinion. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I think that there are cool things that you can do in an MMO that you can't do in any other type of game.
Well, definitely.
And I think that...
God, did you guys see that fucking Eve thing that happened recently? Nick, did you see this?
I may not have.
There was the biggest battle that's ever taken place in Eve. And it started because someone didn't pay the protection money for their corporation. Yeah. And like that snowballed into this crazy vendetta that like launched the biggest battle in Eve history with like dozens of Titans. Yeah. I think, and like just bonkers shit.
So much money being lost per
minute. It was reported on like CBS and stuff. It was amazing.
The video that was on the actual like the Eve blog, it had a link to the Goon Fleet taking down one of those huge carrier ships for the first ever time, and when that was a big deal, and then like, anyway, here's a screenshot of like 15 of them exploding at once. Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. So crazy.
Eve does this cool thing that I learned about where when enough ships are in the same place at the same time, they like slow down time on the server. Like
to keep it from actually chugging.
Yeah, to keep it from chugging, and also like because if there's that many ships in one place at one time, there's probably something cool about to go down, and you're going to want to be able to react to things.
For a long time, like, it was they had such an archaic way of dealing with that. You'd have to like phone in 2 days ahead of time, like, hey, we're going to be at this place in 2 days. It's totally nothing. Just let you know, there's probably going to be like 1,000 ships there. We're just gonna hang out. It's gonna be fine, and then insanity. But yeah,
they can automate that now.
Yeah. They just they have a balancer.
I think Eve players maybe understand on some level that the game is really boring, and so some drama gets generated on a cycle like this because like about every year there's some big battle.
The game takes place on the meta level. That's what makes it. What allows this shit to happen. Is that players like. I mean, the corporations in it, but like beyond that, players like superimpose their own like cultural structures on top of these.
Most of the mechanics are not actual game mechanics.
Like Neptune's Pride exists. Yeah. And I always just imagine that Neptune's Pride is like the little like pull the string barnyard sound version of what people who are really into EVE Online actually do. Like I imagine there's just a guy who has a computer set up that looks like your Zach Radis has 3 screens which have like a little tiny window maybe that has EVE in it in the corner. Then the rest of it is just spreadsheets and IM windows. Right. And he just looks like a stockbroker or something basically. But what he's doing
Nick
is
wrote an article about exactly what
this guy was a stockbroker. He worked for the government. He was a lawyer,
But it's interesting, I think, that like there was that guy that didn't pay his rent money or whatever. But I'm guessing that it could have been more or less anything that happened that was even a little bit inflammatory.
The thing that was so crazy about this, though, is that it set off such a unprecedentedly huge...
Well, you're just saying that people get wound up and
that was something was going to spark that same
in the corner, and then 300 people turn and shoot him in the face because they've been just the need for an insane EVE Online event.
I mean, this is entirely me just projecting my inability to understand why somebody would get that onto it, and imagining.
And probably also the meta layer itself, just regardless of boredom, I imagine that like weird boom and bust cycle of everything exploding, and then people regrouping, but with allegiances spun out of that. And
it's
then
probably more
anthropological over again.
It's like an individual guy freaking out. It's like,
probably just telling about the cycle of humanity.
It's just Archduke Ferdinand is what this guy was. It's
exactly.
Like the one thing that happened that just sparked everything.
Everything boiled over.
And it's got to be interesting now, like. There are probably fortunes being made from people just being in the right place at the right time to like pick up the pieces. Like, a lot of the ships that got killed were like mining this one sector that's now totally unprotected, just kind of randomly as a result of this battle having cost them so many resources. So like, that's pretty fascinating.
Well, there's going to be some new money coming out of this that will surely then just be destroyed next year.
Redrawn borders, all that shit. Games.
I wonder how many embedded EVE journalists were killed in that conflict. Do we want to do any more questions? Do we want to say, if you have a question or domain name, write us at questions@idlethumbs.net. I did want to say...
also, wait, what?
Oh, go ahead.
No.
Oh, were you going to say rate us on iTunes? Because that's not what I was going to say, but you should.
I was going to say follow us on Twitter @idlethumbs.
Okay, what I was going to say was last week we talked about the Idle Thumbs forum community a little bit, and a thing that is really cool is we talked about the welcome new members say hi thread. That thread fucking blew up this week, which was awesome to see. There's a ton of people who showed up on the forum, but one thing that showed up in the last couple of weeks that I think is really cool is a thread called Amateur Game Making Night, which is a thread that was started by people who are all, because a lot of people are into this right now, who are all sort of starting to just put their toe in the water of making games in GameMaker or Unity or whatever solution they want. And there's just sort of, that thread is sort of the test bed for people in the Thumbs community who just want to show off stuff they're making, who want to get advice about just starting to try making a game for yourself at home. And it's already really cool. So check out the Idle Thumbs forums. Check out that. And also the thread we're not supposed to look at still exists, which is just gnawing at me. That was the thread themed around the painting of me, which showed up 2 weeks ago or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, the Idle Thumbs forums continue to be cool. That's all.
Zach, thanks for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Do
you want to plug anything?
Nope, I never want to plug anything, Jake. Sure, Kingdom of Loathing.
TheKingdomofLoathing.com.
Go there for all of your funny links about car game.
And England.
Yep. Good old England.
Cool.
All right.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Games discussed. Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters.
You know what? I can talk about.
Fuck, already shut up.
I can actually talk about.
Sorry. Okay.
I can actually get.
Shut up.
Wasted the reveal of what it's called.
I thought everyone knew what it was called.
I won't assume anything.
That's our other slogan.
I'm actually really upset about it.
What are you doing?
Okay. Does everyone have brain damage?